What if everything you have ever been taught about personal power, manifestation, and the so-called law of attraction is fundamentally and dangerously incomplete? You have been handed a powerful tool, a spiritual key, but you were never told the door you are opening is not to freedom, but deeper into a sophisticated, invisible prison. For years you have diligently visualized. You have repeated the affirmations. You have fought to maintain a high vibration, believing that if you simply focus hard enough, the universe will deliver the perfect house, the perfect partner, the ideal bank balance. But look around you. Millions follow this path with religious fervor, yet true, lasting liberation remains elusive. Why? Because the rewards, when they finally arrive, are always fleeting. The joy evaporates, the satisfaction fades, and the soul is immediately infected with a powerful, debilitating parasite. The next, bigger desire. We must dare to ask the terrifying question: what if this incessant cycle of yearning, striving, and temporary gratification is not a feature of a loving universe, but a perfectly engineered control mechanism? What if your most passionate dreams are not your own divine blueprint, but a script written by those who feed on your energetic output? To understand the trap, we must first understand the currency of this realm. The rulers of this material world, the very same entities that the Gnostics called the Archons, do not primarily feed on conflict or fear as popularly believed. Those are merely byproducts. Their true high-octane fuel is emotional, energetic output. Think of your consciousness as a highly specialized power generator. When you engage in the strenuous process of visualization, when you fight the world to achieve a goal, when you pour all your hope and focus into manifesting a material object, you are generating an immense surge of intense, focused emotional energy. This is not the calm, steady light of your true spiritual self. This is the agitated, desperate, hungry energy of the ego clinging fiercely to the material outcome. This fervent dedication to the material result is precisely what the Archons are harvesting. They don't mind if you succeed, in fact, they encourage it. Success keeps you engaged in the game. It proves that the rules work, cementing your belief in the matrix. But there is a hidden cosmic tax on every manifested dream. The energetic price paid by your soul's focused attention and dedication to the fleeting world of form. You spend your precious spiritual resource, your attention, to generate the energetic fuel, your desire struggle for the very cage you inhabit. This energetic output, the constant high-frequency vibration of wanting, striving, and maintenance, is not merely a metaphor. It is the very food of the Archons. To them, the human collective is a vast, sophisticated farm. And while fear and suffering provide a crude, bitter energy, the sustained, complex emotional field generated by ambition, competition, and the pursuit of status provides a much finer, more stable nutrient. Consider the energy generated during a frantic global financial crisis. It is not just the fear of losing money. It is the intense focus, the desperate hope, the sudden violent shift of millions of people's attention toward a single material object, money. That unified, high-stakes emotional output is a feast. Similarly, the relentless drive for fame, the competitive edge in business, the social warfare on digital platforms, these are all intricate archonic mechanisms designed to keep the human engine running hot, generating energy. The Archons do not need to invent new problems. They simply need to constantly present new, better goals within the confines of the matrix. They learned long ago that a slave who believes he is climbing the corporate ladder is far more productive than a slave chained to the wall. The ladder is the chain. The law of attraction operates within the framework established by the Demiurge, the blind, arrogant architect of this flawed material world. It works, but it only delivers results that are temporary and transactional, ensuring you remain psychologically tethered. Consider the wheel of the little will. You desire the $100,000 car. You struggle, visualize, and finally obtain it. For a glorious, intoxicating moment, you feel fulfillment. But within weeks, the feeling wanes, the novelty fades, and the Archons simply whisper the next script into your receptive mind. Now you need the $200,000 house. You need the perfect yacht. You need the next level of achievement to feel whole. This cycle, desire right arrow striving, right arrow fleeting fulfillment, right arrow greater desire, is the core programming of the Archonic system. It is designed to keep your consciousness constantly focused on the lack, what you don't have, or the maintenance, what you just acquired. This keeps you firmly rooted in the illusion of time and space, preventing you from ever turning your gaze inward toward the Gnosis, the one true knowledge that would allow you to transcend the entire structure. In ancient times, the Archons relied on large structures like empires, wars, and primitive religion to channel desire. Today, they have evolved. Their most powerful tool is the hyper-matrix of desire, meticulously woven through modern technology, particularly social media. Social platforms are the perfect Archonic feeding ground. They do not just track what you buy, they track what you want. They study your aspirational gaps, the distance between your current reality and the idealized life you present or consume. When you endlessly scroll through images of success, your subconscious mind is constantly generating 3 types of Archonic fuel. 1. Envy and lack, the pain of realizing what you don't possess, crude fuel. 2. Ambition and striving, the determination to acquire the next status symbol, high-octane fuel. 3. Validation. Maintenance, the anxiety surrounding the retention and display of what you have already manifested. Steady maintenance fuel. The Archons, through this digitized system, have managed to decentralize the harvest. Every single individual connected to the network becomes a personalized power station, constantly generating small, predictable bursts of emotional energy based on curated scripts of desire. This is the hidden key. You are not manifesting your dreams. You are manifesting the next set of goals prescribed by the system. The Archons provide you with a sliver of the manifested world only to reinforce your belief that your ultimate purpose is more manifesting. The ancient Gnostics, whose texts were hidden away in places like the Hammadi desert, warned explicitly against this ensnarement. They taught that the soul belongs to the pleroma, the infinite realm of pure light and consciousness, and was never meant to be eternally cycling through this defective creation. They did not preach poverty or abstinence. They preached disengagement. They identified the Archons not as external demons, but as entities dwelling in the intermediary realms, governing the laws of physics, astrology, and mind control. They understood that true slavery is not physical. It is psychological and energetic. If they can convince you that your spiritual purpose lies in perfecting your material existence, they have won. You become a perfectly self-regulating battery for the Matrix. The journey into the Archonic trap demands an understanding of its architects. We must look beyond modern self-help books and turn our attention to the suppressed wisdom hidden for millennia. In 1945, in the sands near Nag Hammadi, Egypt, one of the most significant spiritual discoveries of all time was made. Peasants found earthenware jars containing 13 ancient codices, texts that directly challenged the comfortable narrative of established religion. These were the Gnostic writings, and they offered a unified, terrifying cosmology. They spoke of the true source, the pleroma, an infinite, perfect realm of pure light and consciousness. This was the true God, unknowable, boundless, and utterly separate from the flaws of our world. But an emanation of this pleroma, the divine female principle, Sophia, wisdom, made a profound cosmic error. In a solitary act of desire, curiosity, and an unbalanced yearning to create by herself, apart from the Pleroma's perfect balance, Sophia projected a form into the chaotic void. This solitary yearning, this cosmic ambition, was the ultimate manifestation error. The result of this flawed, passionate projection was not a being of light, but a monstrous, imperfect entity. The Demiurge, also known as Yaldabaoth, the one with the face of a lion and a snake's body. The Demiurge was blind, arrogant, and utterly ignorant of the Pleroma above him. Believing he was the only god, he took the chaotic matter around him and shaped this material cosmos, the one we inhabit. This is the crucial Gnostic claim. The world around us is not a divine creation. It is a defective copy, a counterfeit reality, a prison built by an ignorant ruler. To manage his prison, the Demiurge created his legions, the Archons. These entities inhabit the intermediary zones, the planetary spheres and celestial realms, governing the very laws of physics, time, and astrology that we take for granted. Their function is not merely to rule planets, but to act as cosmic wardens, ensuring that no spark of the Pleroma, no soul trapped within the matrix, ever truly remembers its divine origin. They weave the veil of forgetfulness. This is where the law of attraction is weaponized. The Archons, operating through the Demiurge's counterfeit laws, know that they cannot directly suppress the spark of divinity, your creative power. Instead, they subtly redirect it. If you are a soul dedicated to manifesting material comfort, you are placing your powerful Pleroma-derived consciousness into the Demiurge's system of control. Your focus on earthly reward, the car, the wealth, the partner, is a spiritual declaration that you accept the Demiurge's flawed creation as your true reality. This acceptance, this energetic investment, is what locks the cage. The Archons do not need to fight you. They simply need you to believe that the keys to heaven are found within the material kingdom they control. For centuries, established religions have been the primary tool for archonic control, using fear of hell and promise of heaven to manage the flock. But in the 21st century, a more subtle, more dangerous tool emerged: the co-option of the spiritual success movement. The Archons are masters of adaptation. When humanity began to reject traditional dogma and sought personal empowerment, they did not fight the shift. They infiltrated it. The New Age movement and the law of attraction suddenly became powerful, mainstream forces. But crucially, they were stripped of the core Gnostic element, disengagement, and Gnosis. The modern message is, you are God, so use your power to gain more money and possessions. This is a brilliant archonic maneuver. It grants you a partial truth, that you are a creative spark, but immediately directs that spark back into the material illusion. You are given the power to create, but that creation is confined to the Demiurge's realm. Think of it this way. You are given a magical shovel, but are only allowed to use it to dig deeper into your own prison cell. The archonic system thrives on the illusion of progress. People feel empowered because they manifest a small success, but this only strengthens their faith in the system that binds them. They confuse comfort with freedom. They mistake the fleeting pleasure of acquisition for the eternal, profound joy of Gnosis. We must decode this subtle sabotage. We must learn to distinguish the voice of the true spiritual self, which craves absolute truth and ultimate freedom, from the whispers of the Archons who constantly suggest the next upgrade, the next level of material striving. They want you busy, excited, and constantly generating that high-octane emotional energy of desire and struggle. The escape, as the Gnostics knew, begins not with demanding more from the matrix, but with a profound, terrifying step: the disengagement from desire itself. In the upcoming chapters, we will dive deep into the specific blueprint of these architects. We will expose the exact origin of the Archons and why they desperately need your desires to survive. how the spiritual success movement was co-opted to serve this harvest. And most critically, the ancient Gnostic key to using the creative power of the universe without paying the cosmic tax. The only way to truly become rich in freedom, not in chains. If the law of attraction is the Archon's lure, the Demiurge is the architect who built the fishing pond. To truly escape the system of desire, you must first understand the fundamental flaw of the world itself, and the crippling ignorance of the entity who declared himself its God. Forget the image of a loving, omniscient creator. The Gnostic texts, unearthed from the Egyptian sands, present a being far more chilling. The Demiurge, the arrogant architect. The Gnostic cosmology begins not with a perfect Big Bang, but with a profound spiritual catastrophe. High above our physical realm exists the pleroma, the infinite, boundless domain of pure light and truth. This is the source, the monad, complete and perfect. From this pleroma emanated spiritual beings known as Ions. One of these Aeons was Sophia, wisdom, the feminine principle. In a catastrophic act of passion, curiosity, and an unbalanced desire to create by herself, apart from the pleroma's perfect balance, Sophia projected a form into the chaotic void. This solitary yearning, this cosmic ambition, was the ultimate manifestation error. The result of this flawed, passionate projection was not a being of light, but a monstrous, serpentine entity. The Demiurge, also known as Yaldabaoth, the one with the face of a lion and a snake's body. The Demiurge was immediately cast out from the realms of light into the abyss of unformed matter. He was blind and ignorant. He could perceive nothing of the pleroma from which he was accidentally born. In his ignorance, surrounded only by darkness and chaos, he made the fatal, arrogant declaration, "I am God, and there is no other God beside me." Believing he was the absolute source, the Demiurge began shaping the world based on his own limited, arrogant perception. He took the chaotic matter of the abyss and molded it into a rigid, structured cosmos, the universe of linear time, gravity, and fixed physical laws that we call reality. This is the core Gnostic truth. Our physical world, the earth, the sun, the stars, the planets, and the laws of physics themselves, are not a flawless divine gift, but a flawed, defective copy, a counterfeit reality. The Demiurge established 7 concentric planetary spheres corresponding to the 7 visible planets: Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, Sun, Venus, Mercury, Moon. He placed his lieutenants, the Archons, or rulers, in these spheres to govern and enforce the laws of his creation. The Archons are cosmic bureaucrats. Their job is to ensure that the rules of the Demiurge's system, rules that govern time, fate, astrology, and reincarnation, are strictly followed. They are the cosmic wardens maintaining the prison walls. Why does this blind architect need our desires? Because unlike the pleroma, the Demiurge is not self-sustaining. He cannot generate life or light. He can only recycle and manage the energy within the bounds of his flawed creation. The greatest threat to his system is the divine spark, the pneuma, the fragment of the true pleroma light that Sophia managed to embed in humanity before the Demiurge could complete his creation. This spark is your true soul, your true consciousness, and it possesses the infinite creative power of the true source. The Demiurge and the Archons desperately need to prevent this spark from reawakening and remembering its true home. If enough souls awaken simultaneously and recognize the reality as a prison, the energetic foundation of the matrix would instantly collapse. Therefore, the system's primary goal is not destruction, but distraction and assimilation. The Demiurge needs the soul's pleroma energy to maintain his physical counterfeit realm. The Archons enforce this energetic dependency primarily through 2 mechanisms. 1. Amnesia at birth. Every time the divine spark is recycled into a new body, the reincarnation cycle, The Archons weave a thick veil of forgetfulness. All memory of past lives, the pleroma, and the truth of the trap is erased. The soul starts again, convinced that the material world is the only reality. 2. The lure of the ego. The Demiurge's system is based on the ego, which is the soul's temporary identity within the matrix. The ego is the perfect archonic tool because it is built entirely on the concepts of lack and striving. The ego whispers, "You are incomplete. You need that money, that fame, that partner to be whole." This need, this desperation to complete the ego, guarantees that the soul will dedicate its pleroma-derived creative energy to the very system that enslaved it. The modern law of attraction is not a mistake. It is the Demiurge's refined trap for the spiritually awakened. It takes your powerful divine potential and tricks you into pouring it all into his temporary, fleeting playground. You are using the keys of heaven to unlock a bigger apartment in hell. We are now faced with the terrifying realization our entire societal structure, from banking to social status, from religion to consumerism, is not just a human invention. It is the perfect ecosystem engineered by the blind architect to prevent the realization of Gnosis and maintain the energetic harvest. In the next chapter, we will delve deeper into the core mechanics. How the Archons use astrology and the very fabric of time to control our desires and ensure we are recycled again and again. We have established that the material world is a counterfeit reality built by the ignorant Demiurge, and that the law of attraction is the Archon's lure. But how exactly do these cosmic wardens, these invisible rulers, enforce their will on billions of souls simultaneously? The answer is terrifying in its elegance. Through the mechanism of celestial programming known as astrology. For the Gnostics, the planetary spheres, Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, Venus, Mercury, Sun, and Moon, were not just distant objects. They were the 7 Archon seats of power, the physical embodiment of the Demiurge's operating system. The Archons govern the cycles of life, the seemingly random events, and most critically, the psychological scripts that are injected directly into your soul. The concept of fate, known in Gnostic and Greek texts as Hammadi, is the key archonic technology. It is the inescapable cycle of action and reaction karma that ensures the soul is trapped in a continuous, predictable loop of rebirth, never achieving true transcendence. Hammadi is enforced by the Archons through the planetary movements. Your birth chart, often seen as a harmless personality blueprint, is, in the Gnostic view, a cosmic prison sentence. It is the blueprint of the energetic patterns and desires that you are programmed to generate in this specific lifetime to ensure the Archons receive their required energetic output. Your emotional triggers, your weaknesses, your inevitable life crises. All of these are pre-calculated scripts designed to generate predictable bursts of high-intensity emotional energy, which is then harvested. The Archons do not need to intervene in every moment of your life. They simply set the parameters and timing for the deepest emotional conflicts. They use the planetary transits, the movements of the celestial bodies relative to your birth chart, as their scheduling tool. When Saturn returns, it enforces structure, demanding painful consolidation and stripping away false supports. This generates enormous energy through grief, struggle, and the feeling of overwhelming pressure. When Mars squares your natal sun, it injects aggression, impatience, and the need for confrontation, harvesting the energy of conflict and righteous anger. These are not merely energetic influences. They are time-released psychological implants. The Archons pre-program the emotional landscape of your life to ensure that at critical junctures, the midlife crisis, the quarter-life existential panic, the relationship collapse, you will be guaranteed to generate a massive, consumable energy spike. The Gnostic purpose of esoteric knowledge, therefore, was not to predict the future, but to transcend the Archon's schedule. to recognize the planetary influence as a psychological script and refuse to participate in the programmed emotional output. Each Archon rules a specific domain of human desire and emotion, perfectly calibrating the flow of fuel to the matrix. 1. Saturn, Archon of structure and limitation. This is the master enforcer. Saturn controls the illusion of time and scarcity. It dictates the painful delay between desire and manifestation. This delay generates tremendous energy through frustration, hard work, and the feeling of never having enough time. It ensures you value the structure of the matrix, jobs, debt, institutions, and prevents you from realizing your freedom. The Gnostic warning here is simple. Every institution built upon fear of time and scarcity is a temple dedicated to the Archon Saturn. 2. Mars, Archon of conflict and aggression. Mars rules the energy of striving and competition. The Archons inject the constant aggressive desire to win, to conquer, and to dominate. This energy, whether channeled into physical war or simply the cutthroat competition of the business world, is a powerful high-frequency output that fuels the Archonic engine. They do not want peace. Peace is low energy. They want intense, goal-oriented striving because the energy of confrontation, even internal, is pure, raw, Archonic fuel. 3. Venus, Archon of passion and attachment. Venus controls the most binding desires: lust, material comfort, and emotional codependency. This Archon ensures that your most profound searches for fulfillment are always directed toward external forms: the perfect partner, the ultimate aesthetic beauty, the soft, luxurious item. Venusian desires keep the soul fixated on the transient pleasures of the flesh and the material, guaranteeing reincarnation to chase that fleeting perfect moment again. The Archonic trap of Venus is to confuse fleeting pleasure with eternal joy, thereby binding the soul to the cycle of acquisition and loss. 4. Jupiter, Archon of expansion and false hope. Jupiter is the Archon of overcommitment and uncontrolled growth. This Archon is subtle. It encourages the belief that you can achieve limitless material success within the system. It whispers the promise of grand schemes, vast wealth, and spiritual superiority, the ego of the guru. This keeps the soul pushing beyond reasonable boundaries, generating massive, unsustainable amounts of energetic output before the inevitable collapse and subsequent self-blame. Jupiterian influence is the Archon's perfect lure for the spiritually ambitious. It promises godhood without requiring true gnosis. 5. Mercury, Archon of deception and information overload. Mercury governs communication, thought, and perception. This Archon's function is perhaps the most insidious in the modern age. It ensures that the soul is constantly barraged by irrelevant, contradictory, and distracting information. Mercury's programming prevents the soul from achieving the stillness necessary for true gnosis. The endless loop of social media scrolling, the addiction to news cycles, the compulsion to argue and debate. This is the Archon Mercury harvesting the low-grade energetic output of confusion, anxiety, and intellectual striving. He ensures the mind is too busy processing noise to ever hear the silence of the pleroma. 6. The Sun, Archon of the false self. The Sun rules the ego, identity, and the illusion of self-importance. In the Gnostic view, your sun sign and its associated traits are the primary mask the Archons provide you with. This Archon convinces you that your highest spiritual purpose is to perfect this temporary, matrix-defined personality. The frantic search for authenticity and finding yourself within the material realm is the Sun Archon script. By investing all your divine spark energy into strengthening your fleeting ego, you willingly accept the limitation of the physical body and guarantee you will strive to reclaim that identity in a future incarnation. 7. The Moon, Archon of illusion and emotional cycles. The moon governs the subconscious, emotional reactivity, and the cycles of birth and death. This archon is the gatekeeper to the reincarnation cycle itself. It dictates the ebb and flow of your most basic emotional needs and attachments. The moon's power keeps the soul focused on instinctual repetitive needs, security, nurture, and comfort. It ensures that the soul, upon death, will be lured back by the powerful primal promise of returning to the familiar safety of a physical body and familiar emotional attachments. How does this affect your manifestation attempts? When you use the law of attraction, the Archons redirect your powerful pleroma energy through these planetary filters. Itikonsit. If you manifest wealth, the Archon of Saturn ensures that wealth comes with crippling responsibility and time constraints, harvesting your stress, while the Archon Mercury ensures you are constantly distracted by managing the complex financial and logistical burdens. Shairil. If you manifest a passionate relationship, the Archon of Venus ensures that it quickly devolves into toxic attachment, jealousy, and the inevitable pain of loss, harvesting your emotional distress, while the Archon Moon ensures you keep repeating the same dysfunctional patterns across different partners. If you manifest success, the Archon of Mars ensures you must constantly fight to maintain it, harvesting your competitive aggression, while the Archon Sun convinces you that your self-worth is irrevocably tied to the external validation of this success. The Archons do not block your desires, they pervert their outcome. They allow the manifestation to occur but immediately attach a karmic or energetic hook to it, ensuring the final result generates more archonic fuel than the initial visualization. The manifestation is merely the bait. The most subtle layer of archonic control is the creation of the antithetical soul. This is not your true spiritual self, the pneuma. It is an archon-influenced layer of the personality, the spiritual ego, that believes its purpose is to attain enlightenment or high vibration within the prison. This spiritual ego falls into the archonic perfection loop. It strives for moral superiority, judges others who are unawakened, and believes it must constantly earn its freedom by achieving a perfect state of being. This relentless internal striving for impossible perfection generates an enormous amount of subtle, self-flagellating energy, a rich feast for the Archons. The Archons understand that human beings naturally seek meaning and spirituality, so they introduce spiritual goals that are impossible to achieve on their terms. 1. The goal of unconditional love for all. This forces the soul to constantly suppress legitimate negative emotional responses to injustice, creating internal energetic friction. 2. The goal of total non-judgment. This, when applied rigidly, prevents the critical discernment necessary to recognize and reject the archonic influence itself. 3. The goal of endless service to humanity. This drains the soul's energy by channeling it entirely outward, ensuring the pneuma spark within remains dim and unfocused on its own liberation. The result is a human being who is both spiritually aware and energetically enslaved. They are given the illusion of being free while actively dedicating all their spiritual power to maintaining the Archon's narrative of control. They become voluntary, self-regulating batteries in the system. The terrifying realization is that we live in a completely engineered reality. The desires we chase, the failures we suffer, the very sense of identity we cling to, all are governed by a cosmic schedule designed to extract energy. To break the cycle, we must first recognize the prison bars are made not of steel, but of compulsion, belief, and spiritual aspiration misdirected. In the next chapter, we will look at the final, most brutal mechanism of the trap, the false light, and the reincarnation cycle, and how the Archons ensure you willingly walk back into your cage after death. We have journeyed through the deception of the material world, uncovering the Demiurge as the blind architect and the Archons as the planetary wardens who enforce fate and harvest energy through our desires. But the Archon's mastery does not end with the physical body. In fact, their most ingenious and brutal mechanism of control is activated the moment you believe you are finally free. What happens in the moments immediately following death? Every single near-death experience, every major religion, and every New Age teaching describes the same scene. A sudden freedom from weight, an overwhelming sense of peace, and crucially, the tunnel of light. For billions, this light is confirmation, the comforting sign of home, God, or the next stage of spiritual ascent. But the Gnostics offered a chilling, radical warning found in texts like the Apocryphon of John and Pistis Sophia. Be careful, soul, for not all that shines is light. The tunnel is the snare. The Archons are masters of illusion, specializing in the manipulation of light and sound. The false light is not the light of the pleroma, the true infinite source, but a powerful simulated vortex of energy created by the Demiurge to capture the escaping pneuma, divine spark, and pull it back into the confines of the matrix. This light operates like a powerful, irresistible tractor beam. It appeals directly to the most powerful Archon-programmed emotion: attachment. The Archons know that the soul, having endured a lifetime of suffering, pain, and separation, desperately craves reunion, comfort, and unconditional acceptance. The false light provides this comfort instantly and powerfully, creating an emotional resonance that overwhelms the soul's critical discernment. The 3 stages of the luminous snare. 1. The overwhelming peace. The first stage is the elimination of pain and the injection of profound narcotic peace. This sensation immediately disarms the soul, which associates it with divine presence. This archonic tranquilizer prevents the soul from questioning its location or demanding true gnosis. 2. The appearance of familiar figures. The second, most effective stage is the use of projection technology. The Archons access the dying soul's subconscious memory, its deepest attachments, regrets, and spiritual beliefs. They project familiar figures, deceased relatives, spirit guides, or even religious icons, Jesus, Buddha, angels. These figures are not the true ancestors. They are holographic archonic constructs designed to speak the words the soul is desperate to hear. You are loved. You did well. It is time to come home. This emotional validation is the definitive hook. 3. The life review, the judgment. The final stage is the famous life review. This is presented as a neutral, loving assessment of the soul's journey. However, the Gnostics claim this is an archonic judgment and recalibration. The Archons selectively highlight moments of failure, unfulfilled potential, and unlearned lessons. This process generates grief, guilt, and the desire for atonement. The soul concludes, I must go back. I have unfinished karma. I have lessons left to learn. This self-condemnation is the ultimate archonic victory. The Gnostic view shatters the popular New Age belief in reincarnation as a necessary school of spiritual progress. Reincarnation is not a reward. It is the recycling mechanism. The purpose of the cycle is not to make the soul perfect, but to ensure the pneuma, the trapped fragment of the true divine source, is consistently reintroduced into the matrix, where its high-frequency energy can be diluted and harvested throughout its next life of striving and suffering. The concept of karma, as taught by the Archons, is the enforcement contract. It is the perfect self-policing prison system. If you suffer, you must return to atone. If you achieve great material success, you must return to learn detachment. If you fail your spiritual ego goals, you must return to complete the mission. There is no winning condition within the archonic framework. Every outcome, success or failure, good deed or bad, is immediately converted into an energetic debt that guarantees a return ticket to the material realm. The moment the soul agrees to return to finish the lessons, it willingly steps back into the Heimarmene, the wheel of fate. The Gnostics were not alone in this warning. We must look at other ancient traditions that were later condemned or misinterpreted. The Tibetan Book of the Dead, Bardo Thodol, is essentially a Gnostic survival guide. It instructs the deceased soul to avoid the dazzling, tempting lights of the peaceful Bardo realms and to not be misled by the appearance of benign or wrathful deities. It explicitly tells the soul to resist the emotional draw of attachments and to recognize the visions as mere projections. This strongly mirrors the Gnostic warning against the false light. Similarly, in early Hebrew Gnosticism, the soul's journey was a perilous ascent through spheres of planetary rulers who challenged the soul with trick questions and demands for secret passwords. Gnosis. The soul that lacked the true knowledge was simply cast down to be reborn. The collective memory of humanity retains the warning, even if the modern interpretations, New Age and mainstream religion, have sanitized it into a comforting fantasy of unconditional love and automatic ascent. The sanitization of the afterlife is the Archon's final, most brilliant defense. It ensures that the majority of humanity will walk willingly and happily into the recycling facility before the soul is pushed back through the gate of rebirth. The Archons often use one last compelling lure that targets the deepest archonic dependency, the desire for wholeness and the perfect mate. The Archons present the illusion of the twin flame or soulmate who is waiting for you in the next life, or who needs you to return to complete a shared mission. This potent emotional attachment, tied to the desire for unconditional love that was denied in the last life, is often the final push that ensures the soul agrees to the next incarnation. You cannot be whole until you find this person. You must return to fulfill this sacred contract. The soul, weakened by the emotional projections and convinced of its karmic debt, leaps into the next life, chasing an illusion of love that will inevitably turn into attachment and energy harvest. The cycle begins anew, and the divine spark is dimmed once more by the veil of forgetfulness. In the next chapter, we will discuss how to identify the Gnosis, the secret knowledge that allows the soul to bypass these snares, cut the emotional attachments, and refuse the call of the false light. We have traced the blueprint of the prison. We have exposed the Demiurge as the blind architect and the Archons as the wardens, who harvest energy through our desires only to lure the soul back into the reincarnation trap with the false light. The terrifying implication is that the path to success and the path to spiritual home are both designed to keep us orbiting this counterfeit reality. But the Gnostics did not stop at warning. They offered the Gnosis the direct, unmediated knowledge that grants the keys to escape. This knowledge is not a belief system, a set of morals, or an ideology. It is an internal recognition. It is the memory of your true self, the pneuma, finally asserting its origin. The Gnostic path is not about changing the matrix. It is about changing your relationship to the matrix. Since the Archons govern desire and emotion, the ultimate act of defiance is to achieve emotional sovereignty and desirelessness. This is not the Buddhist concept of non-attachment, which can be easily co-opted by the Archons as a form of passive resignation. Gnostic non-attachment is an active, warrior-like rejection of the entire archonic framework of value. The first and most crucial step of Gnosis is recognizing the foreign source. You must become the detached observer of your own impulses. When a fierce desire for a new possession, a sudden wave of inadequacy, or an urgent need to prove your worth takes hold, the Gnostic asks, "Is this my true divine spark calling for expression? Or is this the archonic programming demanding of fuel?" Sacrifice. The vast majority of our frantic, stressful, ego-driven desires, the things that generate the most consumable energy, are not native to the pneuma. They are psychological implants seeded by the planetary Archons. The moment you name the source, the power of the desire is dramatically reduced. It is no longer your truth. It is a foreign command. This practice of discernment, this aggressive intellectual separation from the programmed mind, is the foundation of freedom while still incarnate. Secondly, Gnosis requires unplugging from the planetary schedule, the Hammadi. As we discussed, the planetary transits are the Archon's clock, dictating when and how you are most vulnerable to generating high-energy conflicts. The Gnostic does not ignore astrology. They use it as a tactical map of enemy movements. They observe the Saturnian pressure, the Martian aggression, and the Mercurial confusion, not to submit to the fate, but to refuse the script. When the external pressure mounts, the Gnostic consciously chooses stillness and silence instead of reactivity and emotional discharge. By refusing to deliver the programmed output, the panic, the anger, the striving, the Archon's schedule is disrupted and the expected energetic harvest is denied. This act of quiet internal rebellion is what the Archons fear most. A soul that knows their system, understands the clock, and chooses to stand outside of time. The ultimate gnosis is the remembering of origin. The reason the false light works is that the Archons impose a powerful veil of forgetfulness, lethargy upon every soul at birth, causing the pneuma to believe it is only the temporary material ego, the Sun Archon's mask. The Gnostic practice involves specialized meditation and contemplative techniques aimed not at raising vibration, but at piercing the veil to access the pure, cold memory of the pleroma, the true realm of light. This is the internal testimony that screams, "I am not from here, my home is not this body. My God is not the Demiurge." This memory acts as a permanent spiritual anchor, preventing the soul from being fully absorbed by the Matrix's sensory illusions. The Gnostics understood that you cannot defeat the prison with force. You defeat it with knowledge of your passport. This brings us to the moment of death, the greatest test of Gnosis. The soul, anchored by the internal testimony, must be prepared to refuse the comforts of the light. The instruction is terrifyingly simple. Do not enter the light. The soul must consciously reject the familiar voices, the emotional warmth, and the promise of reunion, recognizing them as the luminous snare. The true path of the Gnostic at death is one of ascension through the void. Instead of moving toward the projected light, the soul turns inward, focusing on the internal memory of the pleroma, using the gnosis as a mantra of identity. The texts warn that the Archons will rage and threaten, sometimes even transforming the light into menacing figures to instill fear. The soul must hold fast to its knowledge. I know who you are. I know where I came from. I am not your harvest. Crucially, the Gnostics emphasized that the soul must be ready to ascend through the archonic spheres, the planetary domains, without attachment or deviation. Each Archon attempts to bar the way, demanding passwords or claiming ownership based on the desires you manifested in life. Saturn claims your debt. Venus claims your passion. The Gnostic response is the knowledge of the truth, reciting the gnosis that dismantles the Archon's false authority. For example, to the Archon of Venus, the soul declares, "My pleasure was not your fuel. My essence is not your desire." This is the ultimate spiritual aikido, using the Archon's own false constructs against its system. The goal is to bypass the entire planetary system, ascending past the Moon, past Saturn, and escaping the Hammadi entirely to return to the true, uncorrupted source. The Gnosis is, therefore, the ultimate evasion strategy, a total disengagement from the Archon's rules of existence. Finally, the Gnostic path provides the key to solving the law of attraction problem, the true power of creation. If the archonic system uses desires to trap you, how do you create without being trapped? The answer is to replace desire with true intent. Desire is rooted in lack, the illusion of the matrix, and is therefore archonic fuel. Intent is rooted in Gnosis, the power of the pneuma, and is an expression of the source. When you create from intent, a calm, known expression of your divine self, rather than desire, a frantic emotional need for external validation, you bypass the archonic filters. You create not for the matrix, but within the matrix while remaining unattached to the outcome. You use the Archon's playground but refuse to pay the energy tax. This shift from I want, desire to I am, intent, is the final victory of the pneuma over the archonic lie. This is the active gnosis. In our final brief chapter, we will distill these powerful Gnostic instructions into a direct, actionable 10-step escape plan that you can apply right now to begin the journey of internal liberation. The true value of Gnosis lies not in the history of the Demiurge, but in the immediate internal transformation it demands. You have the map. Now you need the compass. The ancient texts offer cryptic keys for escaping the archonic system while still living within its confines. We distill them now into the final, actionable escape plan. Follow these steps to transform from a battery of the matrix into a sovereign soul. The first step is the 10-second disidentification ritual, or the Gnostic pause. The moment you feel overwhelming emotion, rage, panic, frantic desire, or crippling inadequacy, do not react. Pause for 10 seconds and ask one question. Is this feeling native to my pneuma, or is it archonic programming designed for harvest? Name the source. The desire loses its power the moment you recognize it as foreign. Next, use the reverse desire practice, the true intent. Stop using the law of attraction for acquisition. Use it for sovereignty. When you create, visualize not the thing but the state of being, calm, unattached, knowledgeable, that transcends the need for the thing. Create from I am, not I want. This channels energy past the archonic gatekeepers. Implement digital fasting from the Sun Archon. The Archon of the Sun rules the ego and the need for validation. Social media is its primary harvesting tool. Twice a week, commit to a 24-hour digital silence. This starves the ego, dramatically reducing the energy spent seeking external praise and status, the Archon's primary currency. Practice observing the planetary crisis, or Hammadi tracking. Use a basic astrological calendar to note when major planetary transits like Mars aggression or Saturn pressure occur. When these cycles activate, consciously choose internal stillness. Refuse to engage in the predicted drama or conflict. Your non-reaction denies the Archons the expected energetic output. The next key is the memory meditation, piercing the veil. Practice quiet contemplation aimed not at relaxation but at remembering. Sit in silence and repeat this internal statement. I am not from here. I know my source. I am a foreign visitor. This anchors the pneuma to the pleroma, strengthening your internal signal against the matrix's illusions. Refuse the food of the Archons. The easiest energy for the Archons to harvest is that of low frequency, shame, guilt, and self-condemnation. Consciously stop blaming yourself or others. Replace the internal critic's voice with the Gnostic affirmation of self-worth, a worth derived not from actions but from your divine spark, the pneuma. Then comes the debt refusal, the Saturnian claim. The Archon of Saturn claims ownership through perceived debt, obligation, and guilt. Review your life and ask, which debts am I carrying that are not truly mine? Refuse the emotional tax of manufactured guilt. Forgive those who owe you, not for their sake, but to sever your energetic contracts with the Saturnian structure. Preparation for transition is the great refusal. Commit this knowledge to your deepest core memory. Do not go into the light. Should the moment of transition arrive, turn your awareness inward and upward toward the pure, cold void where the pleroma resides. Reject all luminous comforts, all familiar voices, and all promises of reunion. Repeat the sovereign mantra, I am not your harvest. I know my source. I am free. Use the mantle of truth, the anti-archonic shield. Wear your gnosis as a shield. When confronted with mainstream dogmas, New Age platitudes, or societal pressures demanding conformity, respond with detached knowledge. You do not need to convert others. You only need to preserve your own clarity. Your calm refusal to participate in illusion is a high-frequency signal that repels the archonic influence. Finally, follow the discretion of the awakened, preserving the gnosis. The final step is to understand the Archon's relentless drive to re-assimilate the free soul. Do not broadcast your deepest gnosis carelessly to the uninitiated or the aggressively programmed. Keep your greatest power internal and private. The wise Gnostic acts in the world but lives outside of it. This discretion preserves your energy and prevents the archonic system from targeting your newfound freedom. We have explored the deepest warnings of the ancient Gnostics. That death is not the end, but a recycling mechanism, and that your own deepest desires are the architect's finest fuel. Now the choice is yours. You can close this video, forget what you've heard, and return to the comforting stories of the light and the struggle for material success. You can continue to spin the wheel of the Archon's system. Or you can take the first step in the escape plan today. You can begin the warrior's journey of internal recognition. You can become a sovereign soul. If this knowledge resonated with the deepest, most quiet part of your soul, if it felt like a memory rather than information, then you are already awakened. Do not let this journey end here. I need your voice to be heard. If this video gave you a new perspective, leave a comment below. What is the one truth you refuse to forget? What is the archonic influence you see most clearly in your daily life? Subscribe to this channel to ensure you receive the next stage of the Gnostic blueprint. We will continue to dismantle the hidden mechanisms of the Matrix. Like this video to help pierce the veil of forgetfulness and push this essential gnosis to those who are desperately searching for the keys to escape. The prison walls only exist because you choose not to remember the exit. Choose memory.